Hello and welcome to A-Star Reads. I'm going to do my August and September TBR video for you today. I am combining the 2 months because the first week of August I was doing Gish, which was this week-long scavenger hunt, and I didn't get to read anything that week. And then these next 2 weeks of August, which we're currently in right now, I'm doing the Tome Topple, and so I'm pretty limited to the books that I'm reading for this challenge. And so I'm going to give you August, September, and let's see how much I get accomplished with this during that time. So the first book that I want to talk about is The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. I recommend everybody should read this book. I am not going to go too much into detail here about it because I'm actually going to do a whole separate video about it. But that book was nonfiction, and I finished it for my nonfiction book club, which I had this past Thursday. Also, I had finished most of it in July, but then completed it here in August. And that's the same with this next book, which is Lorna Dune by R.D. Blackmore. I had finished this probably in June. I got to finish this just yesterday for my Tome Topple challenge. I will be going more into detail about this during my Tome Topple vlog, and so I'm not going to go too much into it right now, but it is a historical romance. It was written in the 1800s, but about the late 1600s. So I don't know how much I would recommend this to other people because I don't know if everybody would enjoy this. I enjoyed it. I think the writing style is beautiful, but it could be construed as a pretty boring read if you're not into that Victorian era style writing. I liked the characters, but it's not hugely character or story driven. It's really about scene building and beautiful writing. I just really appreciated the writing style here, and so I enjoyed this book. Okay, so that might be unfair of me to say. You get to know the characters quite a bit, and there is definitely a storyline, and it's a long, meandering story. The action is not very fast-paced. However, I think that for me, what stood out was the writing style and the scene building. It really waxes poetic about the world around him, nature, and everything that John Ridd, the character, is coming into contact, even on his farm and within the countryside. So I guess that's why I said that. So the third book, which I'm currently listening to as an audiobook, is The Children of Blood and Bone by Tome Topple. I highly recommend this as an audiobook version. It's being narrated by Bonnie Turpin, and she is doing an incredible job. I'm sure that I would enjoy it as much if I wasn't listening to her narrating it, but I just think that she adds to it so greatly. And I know that she's an award-winning narrator, so if you get a chance to listen to her version of The Children of Blood and Bone, I recommend it. I know that this is a very popular book, but I've actually never heard anything about it until I started watching BookTube because I wasn't really focused on middle grade young adult books as much. But I'm really enjoying it so far. It's a fantasy book, and it's about this group of people called the Magi, and they were specific people within the community that were born with magical powers. At the time that they were treated equally among the society, it's said in the story that some of them got carried away with their magical abilities, and I guess this threatened a lot of the people that were non-magic. And so there was this raid where all the Magi's were killed off. The magic was completely gone. And the younger generation, when they're born, they're called diviners until they turn 13 and become Magi. And since there's no more magic, even though they turn 13, they don't become Magi. So they're kept as extremely lower caste citizens. They're treated like dirt. They are often imprisoned into like an indenturehood that really kills most of them. This story is about a specific diviner named Zelie. She's learning how to defend herself and become a warrior, but secretly because they're not allowed to. The point that I'm at, Zelie and her brother Zane went to this town of Lagos to sell a sailfish that they had caught, which was very, very rare. They need to make a lot of money because of taxes, and while she's there, someone asks her, like, can you please help me escape from here because I'm going to be killed? And she does, and she goes to this crazy, crazy adventure where she's trying to get past the guards of the town. It's this horrible standout, it's frightening, and she's able to get out, but then she finds out that the person she helped rescue is the princess. It follows what becomes of the princess, why the princess left the palace and is becoming a fugitive, and then of course how Zelie's reacting to that, what's gonna happen next. And magic is involved because this is all about these Magi's and them having lost their powers. I can't wait to see what happens. This book is very exciting. She's doing a very good job of keeping a fast-paced thrill going. You definitely are wanting to know what's next. So the other books that I'm reading for my Tome Topple challenge, which I'm hoping that I can get to, the tomes are difficult because they're over 500 pages. The one I'm currently reading is a nonfiction book called The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, and this is all about the Great Migration from 1917 to the 1970s of African Americans leaving the South during the Jim Crow era and trying to find better places to live where they could have freedom and not be treated like second-class citizens. And so they're moving to the big cities in the north, and then of course to like California and different places like that. And she wants to discuss, you know, that exodus, because it's a huge part of history that's really not highly discussed, especially in school. You know, you think they're going to a better place, but in a lot of ways they maybe have met different forms of racism, different types of challenges. They were going to a whole new life, a whole new experience, and so that's scary in its own right. Isabel Wilkerson is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and she was a writer for the New York Times, and she has spent a lot of time interviewing over 1,000 people that were involved in the Great Migration. Her research was extensive for this. It's a narrative nonfiction, so it's a lot of stories, people's own experiences during the time that they migrated out of the South. I've read this before. I gave it a 4-star in the past. It'll be interesting to read it right now with the way things are going socially and politically. I really, really appreciate this book though, so if you get a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. I might rate it more highly now that I'm reading it a second time around. The next book for my Tome Topple challenge is Sherlock Holmes. I think it's chronologically the collection of his stories and novels. This is volume 1. This is a very large book. It's over 900 pages. And I'm reading this for my Tome Topple challenge. The thing about this book is that it's all in separate stories and novels. So I have read like 2 or 3. And as far as finishing this complete book, I'm not sure. I can keep reading separate stories as I go along. Any of these ones that I'm including from the Tome Topple challenge, I will probably discuss more in the vlog, so look for more information on them there. And then finally for the Tome Topple challenge, I would like to read A Distant Mirror, The Calamitous 14th Century. It's written by Barbara Tuchman, and that is also a hefty book. Over 900 pages, 28 listening hours because I got the audiobook of it. And this is the book that I have had on my Goodreads TBR the longest. It's another narrative nonfiction book, which means she relays the information in more of a story-like form. And what I think is interesting about this is one of her intentions of this book is to compare the 14th century, which is like the 1300s BC, with the 20th century, so the 1900s, and compare moments of time in the 14th century with moments in time in the 20th century. So I think that's a fascinating take on a historical nonfiction. I can't wait to listen to that one. So the next 2 books I have for my August and September TBR are books that I chose randomly, and I did that because I have well over 1,000 books on my Goodreads TBR. Although I know I'll never get through them all, I kind of wanted a way to just randomly pick some books off of there and get those read. And so I used a random number generator and I picked 2 books from my TBR. So the first book is The Lost Girls of Paris by Pam Jenoff, and I really don't remember putting this on my list. That doesn't mean anything, but I didn't know anything about this except what I just read on the cover of it. And so this is from just after World War II, and this woman named Grace, she's at a train station. She finds a suitcase that's been left behind, and it has a whole bunch of pictures in it, and the pictures are of women who were secret agents during the war. This is about her uncovering the mystery of their stories and trying to figure out what happened to them and where they went. So that sounds interesting. It's definitely a historical fiction. This should be an exciting read, and that's my random TBR. So the next book that I randomly chose from my Goodreads TBR is The Martian by Andy Weir. I have watched the movie for The Martian, and it was fantastic, and if you haven't watched it, that's a very exciting, thrilling, frightening movie, but I've never read the book, so I'm excited about reading this. And this is a sci-fi book. It's about a gentleman who goes and he's the first person to walk on Mars, but then he gets stuck on Mars through technical difficulties, and there's a dust storm that happens and he gets stuck there. And he has to try and figure out how to survive because he doesn't want to die. He's out there completely alone, very, very far away. How is he possibly going to survive? So I'm excited to read this. Like I said, I loved the movie and I'd like to see how I feel about the book. So the next book is a book that I'm revisiting because I just read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and that is The Hunger Games. And I started reading this in July, and of course, I've read this, we've all read this. It's an amazing book. After reading that last one, I want to read the whole series again. So that started. This will be a very quick read, as you can imagine, and I just absolutely love this series. Okay, so then to kind of get in the spirit of summer, And here, summer is really, I mean, July can be kind of wet with a lot of rain, but really summer starts mid-July and then goes through September and sometimes into October. So I'm considering August and September my summer months here. And so I would like to read a couple of summer themed books. The first one is I wanted to get a book that kind of represented summer camps. And that's because during this past Gish, my international scavenger hunt thing, the theme was summer camp. And I just love that theme. I went to Girl Scout camp a few times when I was much younger and I loved it so much. Summer camp is a fun time for stories, and so I thought it would be fun to read a summer camp book. The book that I chose is Born at Midnight by C.C. Hunter, and this isn't a traditional summer camp book. This is a bit different because this girl ends up getting into trouble and being forced off to camp, and when she gets to the camp that she's going to, she finds out that it is not a normal summer camp. It is a camp for werewolves and witches and vampires and not anything what she expected. And I know that this is a series and that it's very popular, but I have never read it or heard of it. And I thought, this sounds fun. So this is gonna be my fun summer, but kind of actually fall read also, right? Because the concepts are a little more Halloween, moving towards the fall. And so this is exciting. I can't wait to read this one. And then the other summer read I chose was A Beach Read by Emily Henry. And I chose this because, for one, it seems kind of light, which I would like to read right now since I've been reading a lot of nonfiction, heavy nonfiction, and then tomes, big, long novels. This one kind of felt like a fun read that is very, I mean, look at it. It looks very beachy. It looks very summery. I know it's very popular to be reading right now. A lot of people have mixed feelings about it, but I'm excited just to kind of find out for myself. It's about one author who is a literary fiction and a serious writer, and then another author who's a romance writer, and she writes very happy and fun stories. They both end up at beach houses that are right next to each other, and they both have writer's block, and they're broke. They don't really have anything else to do, so they end up with a challenge where he has to write something flowery and romantic and happy, and she has to write something serious and dark. So then they'll deal with their differences in book writing styles, and maybe they'll fall in love. It says, everyone will finish a book and no one will fall in love, really. So I'm guessing that that's not really true. It should be a fun read. I can read it sitting outside in the hot weather here in Washington. So that seems like a lot, but there is still one more book, and this book I actually know nothing about because this is from a book subscription that I started a little while ago, and it's called Blind Date with a Book. And this book subscription is done by a small publishing company called Augie's Bookshelf. And what I liked about this was the price. It was only like $15 or something like that. And I liked the concept that you get this mystery book every month. I love mysteries. Not necessarily mysteries, but I like having a mystery. I'm a big fan of the subscription boxes for that reason. So there are options. I think you can opt for like sci-fi, mystery, nonfiction, and something else as your preferences, but I chose no preferences whatsoever because, like I said, I wanted to expand the genres I was reading, and so I don't know what I'm gonna get from month to month. I think the last 2 months one was a historical fiction and the other one was a literary fiction, but really I could be getting anything. And so the fun thing about that is that I don't know. So I'm gonna open this for you guys and let's see what other book I'm going to add to my extensive August and September TBR. Blind Date for Amy. It's a literary fiction. It says, Waverly, Kate, and Amy are best friends. The bakery is facing ruin. Life's pressures tear the women apart. Oh, Amy. How cute. They marked Amy because my name is Amy. That's really sweet. Take a second and write down below before I open it. Do you guys know what book that is based off that description? Oh, life's pressure tears them apart. I don't want to lose my friends. How Lucky You Are by Christine Cusick-Lewis. So this is the book that I'm going to be reading also. This group of friends, they're really great friends. Waverly is kind of the group anchor. The things that are going on in their life is gonna start tearing this friendship apart. And so I'm guessing this is their effort to keep their friendship strong despite all the adversity they're facing. This is the third book I've gotten from Blind Dates and Books. I think this one sounds most interesting of the 3 that I've gotten so far, so I can't wait to read that as well. So that is 12 books in the months of August and September, and since some of them are incredibly long books, that might be a little too much for me, but I'm going to give it a good try. I've already finished Lorna Dune and the new Jim Crow, so I've got 2 down, 10 more to go. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here really fast. I know that I looked nice and pretty in the last part of my video, but I just got done working out and I need to get in here and tell you about a bit of a change to my TBR because I am a glutton for punishment. My friend Magda recently asked me if I was going to be doing Summerween, which is a readathon she, I guess, found out about, and I was like, I don't think I want to add any more readathons. I just finished Readathon, Reading Rush. I'm working on Tome Topple right now, and in between that I had my giant scavenger hunt thing that I was doing. So I think I'm tapped out. However, apparently I'm not. It's being hosted by Gabby Reads and Olivia Reads a Latte, and so I watched their videos about the readathon and I was like, oh, I can do this. So I'm going to do it. It is taking place the last week of August, August 24th through 30th. And there are 5 challenges. So I'm going to actually try and read 4 books that will fulfill those 5 challenges. Let me tell you about what I'm gonna attempt to do. So the first challenge is read a book with a creepy cover. The book that I chose for this is called Cry Your Way Home. It's by Damien Angelica Walters. And this is actually a collection of short stories, and they're supposed to be really creepy, a lot focused on human tragedy and emotions and things, but scary. And it got really good reviews, and I'm looking forward to reading it, and I thought that the cover looked pretty darn creepy. So then the next book is a book that features paranormal or supernatural. And actually for this one I didn't choose a horror or thriller necessarily, but I chose one that's actually already on my TBR list, so I figured I'm going to use something that I'm already planning on reading, and that's Born at Midnight, the Shadow Falls series by CC Hunter. And I feel this works out because she's going to a camp for supernatural creatures. You know, it may not be scary, but it's very Halloween-y to me. The next one is a book with a haunted house, and this is actually gonna fulfill 2 prompts. Number 3 is a book with a haunted house, and number 5 is a book that was recommended by one of the hosts. So Gabby from Gabby Reads recommended The Shining by Stephen King, and I figured, you know, I've watched the movie, I've always wanted to read the book. This is a great time to do it. It features a haunted house. Well, features a haunted hotel. So I kind of thought that would be a fun one to read. It is over 600 pages, so it is a challenge, but I love challenges. The final challenge, which is challenge number 4, is read a book completely in the dark. And I thought this kind of sounded fun, but for me the best way to go about this is listening to an audiobook. So the book I'll be reading in the dark is Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. I actually have the audiobook waiting for me. I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I've read it in the past and I really liked it, and I just kind of wanted to revisit it. And so Devil in the White City is actually a nonfiction. It's a narrative nonfiction. It's half about the very first American serial killer, H.H. Holmes, and then the other half of it really is about the first World's Fair. So that part of it's not very creepy, but the part about H.H. Holmes, I mean, he's a serial killer. I just thought this was a really fun book to read, and I think this would be a lot of fun to listen to in the dark because serial killers are creepy. That is my Summerween TBR, added on to all the other books that I plan on reading. If you're doing the Summerween, let me know in the comment section below and tell me some of the books you're gonna be reading, because I'm interested to see what other people are choosing. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have fun in August and September. If you are reading any of these books or have read any of these books, let me know in the comment section below what you thought, and I can't wait to hear more from you. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe now so you can see more about my little book adventures, and hit the notification bell so you know the next time a video comes out. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.